Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Tom Tobin, president of the club, and we're thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel. Our club meets weekly at Laurel Lake for breakfast on Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30. Come out and join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we're having on our local community and the world, visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary connects the world.
Good morning and welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. It's getting to be a regular thing, seeing each face individually. Our invocation this morning is by Kelly Brennan.
Thanks, Ron. Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Kelly.
May there always be work for your hands to do. May your purse always have a coin or two. May the sun always shine on your window pane. May the rainbow be certain to follow each rain. May the hand of a friend always be near to you. And may God fill your heart with gladness and cheer for you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you,
Ron, it's all
Kelly.
yours.
And lead us in the pledge and the four-way test this morning, David Basil.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, David. And now our president, Tom Tobin.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Good morning, good morning. Hey, just a few things this morning. I believe we have a foundation meeting immediately following this meeting this morning. So this will start at 8:30. I believe it is a continuation of this meeting. Do I have that right, Donna? Okay. So the folks will not need to sign in separately for it. You just stay on the call. Obviously, all foundation members should attend, but everyone in the club is welcome. So that's immediately following this meeting. Let's see. Hey, there's one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I need to bring this up with the board to get their ideas, but sometimes I think the collective genius of the club can be helpful with these situations. We have been notified by the folks that provide us a storage unit over underneath the railroad tracks that they are going to start charging us after many years of giving us free storage space over there. It's my understanding. And Ron, feel free to nod if that's your understanding as well. But that they have been purchased by a new owner, and they are going to start charging us beginning in July. And it's pretty substantial. I think that for the space that we have there, they want to charge us about $145 a month, which is pretty heavy duty. So I just wanted to reach out to all the club members and see if anybody has an idea on storage of club materials. I mean, it's archives, it's Santa on the Green materials, it's a number of other things, a tent that we have, things like that. So if anybody has any ideas, please reach out to me or Marilyn and let us know if you have some thoughts on where we might store things. Okay, next, let's see. You know, I don't have much else this morning, so why don't we just, why don't I turn it over to Jim Lang to introduce our speaker today?
Good morning, everyone, Rotarians. How's everybody doing?
Good morning.
Great.
And welcome, Dr. Raymer. This is a real thrill for me because and I know a lot of you have experienced the wilds. If not, you've read about it. But Dr. Raymer is the Vice President of the Wilds, which is a conservation safari park in southeastern Ohio. She earned her BS in biology from Purdue University and used that education in a 12-year career as an animal keeper at the Indianapolis Zoo and the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. While she loved her work as an animal keeper, Jan was drawn to veterinary medicine, so she made a midlife career change, receiving her DVM from the University of Wisconsin in '95. She loved her 14 years as a veterinarian at the Indianapolis Zoo, but found her passion in conservation medicine as regional manager for the Gorilla Doctors, where she led a team of African veterinarians in Rwanda, Uganda, and the Dominican Republic of Congo for 3.5 years. Jan returned to the United States to start her work at the Wilds in January of 2015 as the Director of Conservation Medicine. In June of 2017, Jan accepted the position of Vice President for the Wilds and feels it an honor to serve the hardworking and dedicated Wilds team. Jan loves spending time with her family, especially her 3 grandsons, which she probably missed when she was gone for 3.5 years. So anyways, please welcome, give her a hearty welcome to Dr. Jan Raymer from the Wilds. It's all yours, Jan.
Oh, thanks very much. Before I share my screen, what I normally do would ask the audience how many people have heard of the Wilds before. Just raise your hand and I can get an idea. Okay, most of you. And how many people have actually been to the Wilds? Okay, so I'm really happy to be able to share the Wilds with you today. And I'll go back to the introduction. My first grandson was born the year I came back. That's why I'm not in Africa anymore. So I had to come back to be with those little boys. All right, let's see if I can make this happen. And Donna, I may need your help on this, but I have my PowerPoint.
So hit share screen, right? And you got your slide deck you can choose?
Yeah, so let me get back to, all right.
And I'll alert everyone that there will be a video within this presentation. If by some reason your bandwidth does not allow that to play right, just turn down your volume while we get through that. But we've had really good success in past meetings with videos, so fingers are crossed.
All right, let's see. Share screen. And it says, let's see.
Your slide deck needs to be open for that to show.
Okay, it's open. And
is it showing you a box of choices and you can choose?
I see desktop 1.
Why don't you try the desktop?
Because it shows a picture of you all on desktop 1. Zoom, not that. Whiteboard, not sure what that is. I'll try this. Is that just a picture of you guys or is that my screen?
No, that's your slide deck and you want to start your slide deck.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. All right, can everybody see the slide? Good. Yes. So I've really had a good fortune in my career to get to work with some really great conservation organizations, right? And the Wilds is right up at the top of that list. It's a beautiful place with fantastic animals. I really believe in the mission, which is to connect people to wildlife through their visits. And I would walk through fire for the team at the Wilds. It's a wonderful team. So thank you for the opportunity to share my passion with you today. So what is the Wilds? For those of you that have been there, you already have a little preview. And those of you that haven't, we are almost 10,000 acres, wholly in Muskingum County. Our eastern border is Noble and Guernsey County, but we are wholly in Muskingum. We are a former surface mine, and that land was donated by the really forward thinking of Sam Speck and Bob Teeter, who back in the 1970s, they were both worked in government and for ODNR, and really very forward thinking with regard to conservation, and thought that after the coal mining was finished, this beautiful property, wasn't beautiful at the time, you'll see a picture, could be converted into a conservation center. We are now a drive-through safari park and a conservation center, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. Since 2010, we have been a subsidiary and proud partner of the Columbus Zoo. We were wholly independent before that. We're still our own 501c3, but we are a subsidiary of the Columbus Zoo. We are known for and really good at having large herds of mostly hoofstock, but we have some carnivores too, and very large pastures. We're one of maybe a handful, literally 5 or 6 other institutions like ours nationwide. We're really well known for a lot of our conservation science and ecology projects, and we're also pretty well known for training the next generation. We have some great training programs. So who's who? These are the different directors and departments that we have. Brock Gorel is the director of operations, oversees all the guest services. John Campbell is facilities. Dr. Steve Spear is the director of all of our ecology projects. Dan Beadham is animal management. Dr. Priscilla Joyner is our veterinarian, the director of animal health. And then we have 2 great educators at the Wilds. 35 full-time team members run this place. So we are a small but mighty team. And in normal years, this is not a normal year, we would employ more than 200 seasonal employees. We were allowed to open back up 2 weeks ago by the Muskingum County Public Health folks. And we're starting to gear back up and hire a lot more seasonals, but I doubt we'll hit the 200 mark this year. So that's a map of the Wilds, and to kind of let you know what's happening at the Wilds, over 90% of that landscape was mined and then was reclaimed. The northern third was reclaimed prior to the 1977 Reclamation Act, and so those reclaimed lands aren't as well reclaimed. Some of the laws tightened up after 1977, but we have over almost 5,000 acres of grassland, and 672 acres of that are restored prairie. We've worked really, really hard to restore this land to what it used to be. We've got almost 4,000 acres of forest, lots of lakes and ponds, 25 lakes or ponds on site. We've worked very hard to restore wetlands, 165 acres of wetlands, and then 2,000 acres of that, almost 10, is where our animals are on pasture. Some of the challenges of a large acreage park that used to be a surface mine are that we have a lot of dams. And after the Buckeye Lake Dam, all the problems were discovered there, we discovered that we've got some issues with some of our dams. We got 1 Class 1 dam, and that just means that it's really highly regulated. If something happens to the dam, then downstream could really be affected. 6 Class 2 and 12 Class 3. So I'm a veterinarian by training. But I have learned more about, and I'm going to say it, dams than I really ever wanted to learn. But if you ever come out and you're interested in dams, I can show you quite a few and tell you about their issues.
Dr. Raymer, I'm seeing a question from our participants. John Adams asked about, could you explain what reclaiming is?
Oh, that's a good question. So reclaiming is, and I'm going to show you some pictures just in about 2 slides. The land was a moonscape basically after all of the surface mining. And so reclamation just means putting the land back to what it used to be. We reclaim it and we try to make it back into prairie, wetland, and forest. So water is an issue. Because it's a reclaimed mine, we don't have any good wells on property. So there is no potable water on property. And some of the lakes north of where it was reclaimed before the Reclamation Act of 1977, we still have some acid lakes. And we're really working hard to reduce that, to mitigate that acid lake situation. We have 30 miles of interior road, which is more than Meigs Township, and many gates. And so these are some of the things that I never had to worry about as you know, the animal health manager, but as the vice president are things that that really consume my thinking sometimes, because raising money for endangered species and wonderful wildlife conservation projects is pretty easy, but raising money for the bottom line is not an easy thing, and some of these challenges create some pretty huge challenges. So this is what it used to look like. This is the mining legacy. This land was actively mined from 1940 to almost 1984. And you guys may have heard of the Big Muskie. That is the largest dragline on Earth during its operation. That thing is huge. And now, the bucket currently resides in the new Jesse Owens State Park, which is about 10 minutes from the wilds. And that is a huge state park. They have, ODNR has purchased quite a number of the lands that were recreation lands that are around the wilds. So you can see what it used to look like, and now this is actually what it looks like now after many of our hardworking reclamation efforts. This is one of the restored prairies that we have right outside the entrance to the wilds, and there are restored prairies and wetlands all over the wild. We've had a difficult time doing forest restoration because the topsoil, when they did the reclamation, is only about 6 to 12 inches deep, and it makes it hard for tree roots to grow and for the trees to grow tall. So we worked on a project 2 years ago where we brought in this giant bucket that's 3 meters long and 3 meters deep, and it digs. We scratched the surface one direction and then scored it another, and we put the tree in the middle. And so we're in the process of monitoring how those trees are doing over the years. And we're hopeful that will give their roots some more space. So now is where we try the video, and this, I'm going to take you on a little trip to the wilds, and I hope this works for you. Right. I hope the video worked for you and it gives you an idea of what we are. I can't tell you how much I adore this place and the wonderful things that we are doing and offer for our guests. So a couple of the things you saw in the video, we offer, in addition to our tours, we have some really great tours to just go out into the pasture and see the animals, but we have overnight accommodations. We have 7 cabins. We call them cabins, but they're really nice cottages. We have a lodge that accommodates, can sleep 12 people. And we have yurts that are really modeled after the yurts that are from Mongolia. And we won an award for glamping with those yurts. It's really kind of fun. We offer zip line, horseback riding, fishing. The fishing is really great. I speak from experience. I fished last weekend and I probably caught 40 fish in that morning. And then we have hiking and biking. And so a lot of fun things for us to do at the Wilds, in addition to the wonderful conservation we do. We're also really, really proud of our new Wilds cabins at Straker Lake. This is our 3rd season with the cabins. They're on a private lake, 7 of them, and then a common area that is now closed for COVID, but we will open it back up next season, we hope. But these cabins are 3 bedrooms, living room, dining room, kitchen, private dock, private screened-in porch. And the reason we have these is because Mr. Bill Straker, who just passed away last month, he was a World War II veteran, and he was reading about the Mighty Oaks Warriors program, which is a program that offers all of our soldiers, both retired soldiers and active duty soldiers, and also other first responders who are suffering from post-traumatic stress or any kind of, if they need any kind of rehabilitation. And they offer week-long programs for these people, both men and women. And they have a facility on the West Coast and in Texas and on the East Coast, but they didn't have a Midwest facility. So the Straker, Mr. Straker donated $2.25 million for us to build these cabins. And now each month that we are open, we host the Mighty Oaks Warriors program and it's free. If you know any veterans or active duty people who could benefit from a faith-based program, this program is free for those participants, and it's 1 week out of each of our open months. And we are really, really proud to partner with Mighty Oaks for this program. And there's Mr. Straker in the bottom right of the screen. So we also do some really, really fantastic conservation work. We had 3 baby rhinos born last year, 4 the year before. We have 3 pregnant this year. So we have southern white rhinos and Asian rhinos. And we actually, with our southern white rhinos, are the only institution outside of Africa that has 4th and 5th generation white rhinos. That means, you know, the first animal that came from Africa, so many years ago, because all our animals don't come from wilds. They come from other American Zoo and Aquarium institutions. But we have had from that first one 4 and 5 generations since that first one came. And we're really proud of that fact. In fact, we've won some awards for the work that we've done with rhinos. And when you come out for our tours, the Wild Side tour is pretty phenomenal. You can go in a truck right out to the rhino herds, and they just come up to the truck and say hello. It's pretty great. Przewalski's horses. So I'm going to tell you, in addition to some of the really phenomenal animals we have out there, we try to do work with our animals that will help the animals in countries of origin. So Przewalski's horses are the only wild horse that's left on Earth. And they're found in Russia and Mongolia. And we have one of the largest herds outside of Russia and Mongolia. And we also have 3 animals that are up at the Minnesota Zoo right now that were supposed to go to Russia this year, but that kind of fell apart. But they're going to go back to Russia to be reintroduced next year. We have worked really hard to figure out a way to track these animals. And mares, the female pea horses, will allow a collar, so you can put a tracking collar on them like you've seen on television. But the stallions will not allow that. They just scrape them off. So we did some research with our animals where we braided in the tracking device into their tails and then glued it in. It was a fake tracking device, so we could see how that worked. And it really worked well. And so that technology is now being used in Mongolia and parts of Russia where these animals have been released. They were extinct in the wild until some European zoos got together and reintroduced them. And we're really proud that in 2021, some of our animals born at the wilds are going to be reintroduced. We also work with assisted reproduction. We've done some artificial insemination in these animals, and we're working with the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute on that. Scimitar horned oryx is another great success story. These animals are from Northern Africa. We have a huge herd. They also were extinct in the wild until 2016. And through a partnership with a sheikh from Abu Dhabi, the Sahara Conservation Fund, and several institutions in Europe and the United States, these animals have been, and the country of Chad, have been reintroduced to the wild in Chad. They are protected and they have a huge area where they can roam. And there are 3 animals in Chad that were born right here in southeastern Ohio that are now running free in Chad. So a species that was extinct is now been reintroduced, and the wild's helped with that. That, you know, that speaks to our heart. Those of us that work in conservation, that is like the fullest circle that you could go. So we're really, really proud of that work. These are Persian onagers. I know they look like donkeys, but they're the most endangered of all the non-domestic equine species. They're only found in the country of Iran, which used to be Persia. So you can imagine that doing conservation work in Iran is very difficult these days. And we are really proud of the fact that our work in assisted reproduction resulted in 2 foals that were born through artificial insemination. And this was the first time that that has been successful in any non-domestic species anywhere. And that happened again right here at the Wild. So we're kind of a hidden gem. And one of my goals as the vice president is to make us not be hidden anymore. So I'm hoping that you guys will come and visit us and tell lots of people about us. We also have a carnivore center. We're one of 10 cheetah breeding centers in North America, and we had 6 cubs born last year, 5, 6, 7 cubs born the year before, and we are full up with cheetahs. So we didn't get a breeding recommendation from the American Zoo and Aquarium Association this year because we don't have any more room. In the bottom right are painted dogs. We have African wild dogs or painted dogs, one of the most endangered of all of the non-domestic canine species, and arguably one of our most dangerous animals on property, but they are so cool. And we've had such breeding success with those animals that we now have our female on contraception. The 2 upper slides are they're Asian wild dogs. We are one of 4 institutions in North America that have these dogs, and we had good breeding success last year with the 5 puppies you see. Unfortunately, the dam died during childbirth, because she had what we call a dystocia. One of the babies got stuck, and she died during the surgery to get the baby out. But we successfully hand raised those babies, and you can come and see them. Very few institutions have doles. That's the name for them, D-H-O-L-E, and we're really pleased to be able to offer those that conservation work that we do with that species and have our guests see those animals. So some of our other work, restoration ecology. We held our first Wilds Conservation Science Symposium. We partnered with Muskingum University in 2018. We were supposed to have another one this year, but hopefully that'll be next year. We've had 3 scientific articles submitted for publication in 2019. These are peer-reviewed articles. We do long-term prairie monitoring of soil and plants. We have planted more than 4,000 native trees, trying to expand the forest. 10 acres of forest have been cleared of invasive species. When they did the reclamation that I was speaking about, they, you know, at the time didn't know and put in some very fast growing species, but they were invasive species, non-native species. So we're clearing the forest of that and putting in native species. And we've done a lot of mapping, in addition to mentoring masters and PhD students. And that's part of the training of the next generation. Wildlife ecology, again, also looking at the native wildlife. We do grassland bird monitoring, partnering with Muskingum University. I don't know how many of you have heard of hellbenders, but that lower picture, we have in North America the 3rd largest salamander in the world. So there's a Chinese salamander and a Japanese salamander, but that is not even the biggest hellbender I've ever seen. And we raise them from babies and then reintroduce them to West Virginia. The Columbus Zoo does the reintroduction work here in Ohio, and we do our work in West Virginia. And if you can see the red and black beetle there, that is a burying beetle. That was the very first insect declared endangered by the federal government. and it was completely extirpated from Ohio. And we, along with the Cincinnati Zoo, are raising these from babies, we breed the beetles, raise them up, and their babies are such cute little maggots. But then we reintroduce them to our lands. And last year was the first year that we had burying beetles over winter. And it's a big beetle, it's about this big, a very important part of the ecosystem. So we're really happy to do that local conservation work. We are doing environmental DNA work, which is amazing. Dr. Steve Spear, he can dip a cup into a stream, spin it in a centrifuge, and then run this through a series of complicated scientific tests that I can't explain here, and learn from that exactly what animals have been living in that stream. So we can learn whether or not hellbenders are living in that stream, and that would be an appropriate stream to reintroduce the hellbenders. We are partnering with Ohio University on bobcat monitoring. We looked at snakes on our property for snake fungal disease. We are strong partners with OSU, with the veterinary department, and with the wildlife ecology department. We have camera traps on property, and we have a citizen science program where you go to Zooniverse, the platform, and you pick the wilds, and our citizen scientists are helping us identify what we're seeing in our camera traps. And what we have seen is that we have as many bobcats on our property as we do coyotes. It's pretty crazy. We're doing bat and carnivore surveys, and I could talk your ears off about this. So if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to continue the conversation about all the fantastic wildlife ecology work that we do. Other notables, we hosted the American Zoo and Aquarium Association Board of Directors annual meeting. And it was actually kind of hilarious, because these are, I'll do some gorilla talk. The silverbacks, these are the leaders of the industry, and they were going on a tour, and we were showing them our takin and our giraffe and our rhinos, and they were taking selfies with our animals, like, oh my gosh, look at these animals. And we had one of the guys from Disney said, Jan, the wilds is magical. And I was like, I thought you reserved that word for Disney. But he said, no, really. And it was really a pleasure and an honor to show these people the wilds and have them react in such a positive way. We hosted the annual Ohio OSU Center for Human and Animal Interactions Research and Education 2-day conservation workshop. We hosted the Conservation Center for Species Survival Board of Directors annual meeting. We have camp. It got canceled this year, but last year we had record levels of attendance. We tried to do virtual camp this year. We did 1 week, and it was very successful. We are now going to try and do family camp, because we feel like that would be approved by the public health folks. So if you guys have anybody who would enjoy family camp, be on the lookout for that. We secured $700,000 from the House Appropriations Improvement Fund to renovate our Overlook Cafe and our carnivore environment. And then we have a really strong partnership with the Ohio DNR, and they upgraded one of our dams last year, and we're looking at a campground for 2021. I'm really proud of the fact that we did an economic impact study with the Voinovich School down at OU, and learned that in 2018, we had a $15 million impact on the region. And we're really proud of that fact. We provide a lot of jobs, and then through our vendors, we provide jobs, and we just are quite an important aspect of Southeastern Ohio. And then this year, remember I said we had no potable water. We applied for a $1.4 million grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission Power to bring water to the wilds. So apparently that is not affected by COVID, and we have been told that we're a strong candidate, but we won't find out about that until August. So really fingers and toes crossed for that. So that's my passion about the wilds in a nutshell. These are my other passions. That little grandson has been born now, and I just am in love with these little boys. I got to meet my 10-week-old grandson for the first time last weekend there in Indianapolis, and it was just a thrill. So I encourage you to come and visit the wilds when you can. It's about 2.5 hours from Cleveland. We have overnight accommodations. We are open, and we're doing all of the appropriate COVID work to keep you safe. And I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Dr. Raymer, this has been amazing. I am going to stop the screen sharing for a moment so we can see the audience.
Yep.
And Tom, are you going to moderate Q&A? And Mimi
Yeah.
had a question in the chat box once you're ready.
Exactly. Yeah, please, Mimi, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Oh, you got to unmute yourself first, Mimi, I think.
I think it's the lower left. There we go.
Oh,
There you are.
Oh, she muted again.
okay. What I was curious about was the origin of the white rhino herd. The reason I asked that is that my understanding that the last white rhino herd in the southern part of Africa in old Zaire in the 90s was in Zaire at a wildlife reserve. And when we were doing a project down there with elephant food crop raiding, because the guards couldn't protect the rhinos unless the elephants stopped eating their food. And we cured that with, would you believe, capsicum sprayed?
I have heard of that project, to tell you the truth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm curious about where the origin of these white rhinos that you have.
So that's a great question just in general, because a lot of people are curious about where animals in zoos came from. So years and years and years ago, when we thought it was okay to have these menageries, people started bringing animals into human care, right? All kinds of animals came from Africa and Asia and North America and started these menageries. Over the years, we have evolved from that mentality of just having animals for people to see. We have evolved into our strong conservation goals and mission. And so the original rhinos that came over probably were among those that just came over as menageries. But we now understand that southern white rhinos actually are not endangered. They're still found all over. They're still being killed for their horn, but they're threatened. They're not endangered. Northern white rhinos are functionally extinct. There's only 2 females left. They're post-reproductive. The male died. I think you may have seen that on some social media 2 years ago. There's a group of people from the San Diego Wild Animal Park that are looking at they have already created an embryo, a northern white rhino embryo. And the hope is that we can put that embryo into a receptive southern white rhino female and bring that species back from functional extinction. But most of the animals that we have have been born in human care. Now, that said, there are times when we know an area is going to be destroyed for a dam, for hydroelectric, for a town. And there are people who, we get the permits and we'll go in and get animals out to try and save them. That happens very rarely these days. So most of our animals have been in human care for eons now.
My other question had to do with the combination of ecosystem restoration and what the ungulates are eating. The giraffes, for example, and because our native species are not their preferential food.
That's also a great question. So the grazers, the animals that eat eat grass, they are fescue, and the kinds of grasses that we have are just fine for them. They might not be the exact same grasses they would have, but they're just fine for them. And in fact, we kind of feel like that's why we're so successful with our white rhinos, because they can graze not 8 months out of the year. They're out to pasture 8 months out of the year. The browsing species like giraffe, because they are browsers, we have so much willow on property, and they love willow, that we can go cut down the willow and we tie it up in bundles to these really tall stands so that they can eat it from those bundles. They will still graze, but we prefer to get them locusts. They eat a lot of locusts. So while it's not the native species, it is an appropriate food for them. We also supplement with some grains and with some grass hay. We have so much property, we grow all our own grass hay. And so we can supplement with grass hay. We have to buy alfalfa, but we do grow all our own grass hay. And then there's a nutritionist on staff at the Columbus Zoo that helps us if there are any specific nutritional requirements or problems.
Cool. Thank you.
Dr. Raymer, let me ask about the potable water. Did you, so is that a matter of drilling wells, or how is that going to be accomplished?
The wells are contaminated. So we can't, we would have to either put some kind of a filtration system, which is exorbitantly expensive. And I did talk, ODNR up at Salt Fork, they have got their own filtration system. And I did talk to them about that. And I think it would not be cost effective for us. So we are working with Muskingum County to bring municipal water. And so Muskingum County, it is within 1.5 miles of our border. And Muskingum County has put in a grant to the EPA to get it to our border. And then our grant request was to do the piping to get it down to our visitor center, and then to drop, to stop off along the way. And then we'd need a little pump assist. So yeah, we're working with both Muskingum County and the Appalachian Regional Council.
So that's for humans to drink. How about the animals? Are they okay with whatever?
Yeah, so the animals actually have potable water. We right now we have water tanks. So all of our human water and our animal water is stored in water tanks, and we pay to have it hauled in from Zanesville. But our animals all have human grade water access to that, but they also have ponds. The ponds on our property, the acid ponds are all north. Our animals don't have access to those. But the ponds on our property are all within the guidelines for livestock. So they have access to the ponds, but they also have access to drinkers, like with human grade water. And we have some springs on property that are okay, not for human, but they're okay for animals, and the animals have access to those too. And the rhinos are hilarious. We have seeps all over the place, where the water bubbles up. The rhinos find those, dig it up, and make a big mud wallow. And so they've created all their own mud wallows. It's pretty funny.
All right, additional questions for?
Yeah, I have a question. Couple of them. This is a good presentation. I would love it. Even the grandkids would love this. Let me tell you, what is a dragon for one?
What is a dragon?
Yeah. Dragon. You said the dragons when you were showing the dirt.
Oh, drag line.
Dragger. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they just when they were mining, right?
Yeah.
So it's a drag line, and they had this giant machine that had a bucket that literally like 2 school buses could fit in this bucket. And they dragged it and scooped up dirt to get down to the coal. And that was the biggest drag line in the world at the time that it was operating. And that bucket is still, you can go see it at the Jesse Owens Park. It's impressive.
Okay. And also, when you actually get the animals, I'm just saying, do you go to the country and transport them? How do you transport them, and how do you do that?
So that's a really good question. We are there's a national organization called the American Zoo and Aquarium Association, and we are accredited. The Columbus Zoo is accredited, Cleveland, Cincinnati, all the major zoos are accredited, and that's a pretty stringent accreditation process. And we're also licensed by the USDA. If you have that accreditation and that licensing, it means you really take very good care of your animals, and their welfare is good. So when we, and believe it or not, the endangered species that we have, they all have a stud book. So kind of like, racehorses and dogs and that kind of thing. And it's a national, sometimes an international stud book. And there's a group of people called, that sit on a committee called a species survival plan. So for example, rhinos, we have these 3 babies born, and we go to that committee and we say, okay, we have these 3 babies, this is their genealogy, where can they go? So we are gonna get a female Asian rhino from the Bronx Zoo because she fits with our genetics. She's not related to our male. We're gonna get a male rhino from Miami Zoo. We had a little Asian rhino who was named Glenn after John Glenn. He's now at the Seattle Zoo because the stud book said he needed to go to the Seattle Zoo. And we put him on a truck. There are haulers that are specifically licensed to carry non-domestic species. And if they need to be temperature controlled, they're temperature controlled. With rhinos, we send a veterinarian on every trip so that we make sure if something happens, there's a veterinarian available. And little Glenn took him 4 days to get out to Seattle, but he had food and water, and they stopped at night. And it's kind of funny. I went on a trip with a white rhino that went down to Florida, and she was in a big crate on the back of a flatbed truck, and we made sure that the weather was fine. And we would pull in to get gas, and I would think, nobody knows there's a rhino in the it's kind of crazy. And but the animals are very well taken care of. Now the smaller animals we can fly, so cheetahs will fly. We have a cheetah that's going to Japan because the stud book said she needed to go to Japan, so she will fly, obviously. And so it's very cooperative. It is very regulated, and animal welfare, the individual animal welfare, is our highest priority.
So, but when you originally get an animal, is it from the zoo, or do they go to Africa, catch the animal, bring?
We don't get animals from the wild anymore. That very, very rarely does that happen now.
So it is from the zoo.
It's all cooperation from the zoos all over North America and sometimes the world.
Okay, so then when you're in a lodge or a cabin or a tent or a yurt, tell me, anybody ever have an animal visit?
So the yurts are kind of funny because they overlook the main pasture. And when you stay in the yurts, they're beautiful. It kind of reminds me, if you've ever gone on safari in Africa, it kind of reminds me of those tented camps that you have in Africa. It's got a nice floor and bathroom and all that, but they overlook the pasture. And right now, the Pear David deer, another species that's extinct in the wild in China, they're in breeding season. So all night long you hear because the male is trying to attract all the females. And so it's kind of fun because people hear and get to see the deer from their yurts. None of our overnight accommodations are in pasture. They're just the yurts are adjacent to pasture. The cabins and the lodge are not even near pasture. They're on private lakes.
Okay, it's interesting. I haven't heard about yurts in Ravenna. There's a community of yurts.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They're fun. They're really nice. And our camp, our overnight camp for the kids, is in yurts as well.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a quick question, Dr. Raymer.
Yes.
Thanks for doing this, first of all.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
What is the percentage of revenue derived from guests?
Another great question. So our budget is, our annual operating budget is about $6.6 million, and our gate is about $6 million. So that, well, it won't be this year, but we had our best year ever last year, and we were really hopeful for this year, but alas. So that is just to keep us running. So any dam repair, road repair, building construction, new exhibit construction, that is all donations and grants. So I am forever looking for grants. And and this year we're $1 million behind this year. And we're hopeful that we can keep it at $1 million now that we're open, but we're operating at about 40% with all the COVID restrictions. So if we can keep it at $1 million under, we'll be happy, but we're gonna have to see how that goes.
Dr. Raymer, I'm glad you mentioned, was it Mr. Straker that contributed?
Bill Straker, yes.
So
I'm so fortunate to have been able to meet him. He just passed away last month.
So I love hearing stories about people expressing themselves philanthropically like that. Now, did he have a particular passion for the mission of your organization as well? Or was he, okay, so could you?
He's local, and most of his, he has a foundation. He and his wife had a foundation, the Straker Family Foundation. This donation, this particular donation was his money and not the foundation money. But they had already, the family foundation had donated money to build our first clinic, veterinary clinic, probably 10 or 15 years ago. And he was just such a wonderful man. He wanted to give back to Muskingum County. And so he would do these big projects, small projects, and everything in between. And many of his projects were anonymous. Like we struggled with him to allow us to name those the Straker cabins. So just a really neat guy.
It sounds like it. All right, other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I wondering about the accommodations. How do you book that? Is it just through your website or?
It's through the website, and to tell you the truth, the yurts are like booked for this year. We're really happy. It's crazy. The lodge books pretty quickly. The cabins, we're only in our 3rd year with the cabins, so there's more availability for the cabins. But yes, it's all done online. And we used to be able to take for our tours, which are wonderful. We used to be able to take walk-ins, but with COVID, all of those have to be advance reserved too, and that's all done online as well.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, if you come down for a tour with your family, it pays to get a membership because you pay for that membership your very first time that you're here. And then you can come for free the whole rest of the time.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Oh, ha to Joe Boyzo.
Yes. Did you like that? I earlier when Liz asked what a dragon was, I chatted that it's a mythical creature. I thought maybe she thought perhaps we could go and see a dragon at the wilds.
I would love that.
That would be really awesome.
They could get a Komodo, but that's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dr. Raymer, last week we had the folks from the Holden Arboretum.
Oh, nice.
And Botanical Gardens. They did a really nice job explaining what they do relative to plant matter and trees and things like that. But I know Mimi was very excited to hear that, or to see something that focused more on animals and insects today. So I appreciate you hit both of those buttons this morning.
Awesome, yeah. Not a lot of people appreciate the insect conservation, but that is an important beetle.
We wouldn't survive without them.
That's
Not those specific beetles, but, and yes, my frustration for the week was hearing this motor, and I went and looked out in the front yard and then in the side yard, and there's a guy from a shall be nameless organization spraying 2,4-D on my pollinator garden.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I was not a happy camper. So I asked our grounds guy, well, they were probably after the clover. I said, that clover is way preferable to grass. What are you know, so. Yeah. But the pollinators are really a huge thing. And I was going to ask you a question about whether there's any interest, particularly with the prairie, with, providing ecosystems for pollinators.
Great question. We work with Karen Goodell at OSU. She's been looking at pollinators for probably 12 years at the wilds in our prairies. And we have 23 species of bees, gajillions of butterflies. I can't even tell you how many butterflies. And so the pollinator work has been being done through OSU for a long time. And there are students that are getting their master's and PhD projects looking at our pollinators.
Cool. Yeah. You know, that's so interesting. My 8-year-old grandson, since he's been 5, told me he was going to be an entomologist.
Excellent.
Yeah, he loved bugs.
So we have a great summer camp program. I hope we have it next year, but it's from 8 to 18. For 8 to 10-year-olds, it's 3 nights. And then for 11 to 18-year-olds, it's 5 nights. And we have a high school program that's great. It's called Dirty Wild Jobs. And these kids are either interested in animal management or veterinary medicine. And they spend, the week doing some camp stuff in the afternoons, but in the mornings, they spend their mornings either with the veterinarians or the animal management folks. They have to do a project and they have to present their projects at the end. And these kids, they go whole hog. And I'm really pleased. And to tell you the truth, we have 2 employees on site that went through our summer camp program. Then they were camp counselors, and then they went to college, and now they're our employees.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Dr. Raymer, did I hear you say earlier, did I hear you use the expression a really cute maggot?
Well, yeah. So the baby, I could show you.
I just want to figure out how to use that in my everyday conversation. I don't
Yeah,
think
you
I've-
wouldn't believe the kinds of things we say. But no, when we breed the burying beetles, the woman that takes care of them, she actually sent me a picture. The babies are here, and it was a bunch of maggots on a dead rat. So she's so, and we'll hear her on the radio. She goes out and traps now the release sites. And just yesterday, she's like, I found, and these guys are tagged. You know, you can tag bees, and then we use bee tags on our beetles. And she said, I found female number red 482 at the prairie such and such. And so she was so excited because that female we released last year, and she made it through the winter. So
That's amazing. You can tag insects like that.
Yeah,
That's
really.
fascinating.
Tom,
Yes.
I just want to, first of all, thank Dr. Raymer. A fascinating presentation. We so
Yes.
appreciate this. And Jim, phenomenal job on our Fun in June series on the speakers. And kudos to our speaker committee. I mean, here we are meeting virtually. We wouldn't have had the opportunity to hear Dr. Raymer if she had to trek all the way up to Hudson, Ohio. But thanks to Zoom, we're able to have these wonderful presentations. And I am going to put the word out to all that these are recorded. We trim them down and then they air on HCTV. But here's the best kept secret that I'm hoping you guys will share. Back during Evan's presidency, he started a YouTube channel, and every single program is on the Rotary Hudson YouTube channel. It is a tremendous way to share with others just these wonderful sessions that we're having. So keep that in mind. That's a great way to perhaps get other potential members to explore what we're about. But thank you so much, Dr. Raymer.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Come see us.
All right. Folks, let's see. I just wanted to follow up with one other thing. I did get a chance to attend, and I think James Field did as well, the commencement ceremony at Midway Drive-In Theater the other evening. It was very good, I thought. Pat Shearer, I see you were there. Did you have any comments that you'd like to make about it?
My compliments to the school administration, the school board for pulling off a graduation ceremony for our grads from 2020. They had a lot of disappointments this past couple of months, and Monday night, although it was a long night, well, they had a great time, and it was a great opportunity to recognize them.
It was. They had fireworks and everything. It was quite a show, and I think a good time was had by all. All right. I think that's probably it for this morning, unless anybody else has any comments they'd like to add for the good of the group.
A reminder for foundation members, stay on the line. We're going to carry right over.
Exactly. Matt LaFountain, you are with us this morning. I think I saw you earlier. Great. So we'll just why don't we turn things over to you, and we will adjourn this meeting. All foundation folks or folks that want to attend that meeting, just stay on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you.